Hey guys, we get a lot of messages on what do we do in our procedure when we bring a new gecko into our facility. We get a lot of questions on new keepers just getting in with one gecko, with a few geckos, on are they doing things properly or should they change some things as they move forward. In this video, you'll figure out exactly how Flawless does it. Hey guys, what's going on? Flawless Crested Geckos here, Will. And in this video, we're going to dig deep into some of the questions we get that we kind of answer one-on-one via Instagram or through email. And most of it has to do with the acclimation of your Crested Geckos and what do we do differently? Here it is, we're almost a decade in and we've learned a lot of things over the years. Number one, best thing you could do when you get a new Crested Gecko, and especially if it's your first Crested Gecko, maybe your first to your fifth, is get them set up and leave them be. We've been doing videos on that because we get a lot of questions specifically about, Crested Gecko care and what to do in certain situations. Also, to dig a little deeper on that same topic, do we change anything here, at the vault where, we still purchase Crested Geckos. We still purchase geckos in projects that we need certain things in. And we don't do anything differently. We, for the most part, don't have any what you would call or categorize as special needs geckos where we have to really cater to them in a specific way. Everything kind of falls in suit and it's perfect for us. It makes for some very long working days on Mondays and Thursdays, but that's the bulk. About 90% of our feeding and cleaning is done on those days, which also allows us to go down into the vault on the other days and literally pull them out, play with them, enjoy them, look them over, take photographs, do videos, do reels for content. So it kind of falls in the suit for us where we have a program or standards of operation, which is what we put out videos on before. And kind of the short term for standards of operation is going to be basically how you do things. What is your procedure on how you do things to make sure that everything falls and coincides with the best possible care for your Crested Gecko, as well as meeting all of their needs. And again, we feed on Mondays, Thursdays. You can go back through some of our videos and see exactly how we do things. But yeah, twice a week, that's pretty much it. As you've seen over the years, if you went down that rabbit hole and watched some of our videos, we have healthy Crested Geckos. We got some geckos that are teetering, 70 grams. We have a ton of geckos in the 60s and the 50s. Now, what I will say is we, as Flawless, we don't chase having the biggest geckos. That's not something that we, desire. We don't desire having a 100-gram gecko or 90-gram gecko. To each his own. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Now, I will say, I do kind of err on the side of my thinking as far as genetics. I think some geckos are genetically just mapped out that way to be a heavier gecko. But I also don't think we should aid them in kind of pushing them over that threshold of that 100 grams or so. I do, again, it's just an opinion, so that's the disclaimer. I do think you could run into a lot of health issues with your Crested Gecko the bigger they are. Not only health issues, you're going to run into breeding issues the bigger they are. And I think that goes for both males and females. Females will probably have issues laying or issues with their overall health as long as their reproduction. And your males are pretty aggressive when breeding. So obviously if they're bigger, they're going to cause, if anyone doesn't know, they're going to cause damage to each other when they breed. They're going to bite on each other, pull on each other's crest. You're going to see scarred heads. So, and typically it's going to be the males doing most of the biting. So if you have a bigger male, it's going to cause more damage to those females that you're going to be pairing them with. Now, as you're always watching over them and making sure that they're going to be okay, this is normal breeding behavior. And yes, in breeding, things are going to happen. They're going to drop tails, they're going to get scars, they're going to lose crest. These things happen when you're a breeder. Now, these things happen in the wild. It just is what it is in that situation, but you want to make sure that you're there to hopefully facilitate the best breeding situation. So back to the topic, when we bring geckos into the vault, we don't stick to the original feeding project or feeding program or feeding schedule that the original breeder or producer of that gecko. We actually don't typically ask any questions when it comes to feeding. We've produced thousands of crested geckos at this point, and we buy exactly what we need. We make sure that they're healthy, everything that we need. And we bring them in, we quarantine them, and then basically we get them adjusted into our way of keeping. That means food-wise, we feed Rapashi, Pangea, we fed Vitamil, which is the new one from Korea. We feed Sweet Reptiles, BP Zoological. We feed all the flavors. We don't gravitate toward one specific flavor. We mix them, we mix brands, we mix flavors, and we have never had an issue with crested geckos feeding behavior. Are you guys needing some assistance with your crested gecko breeding programs? Well, check out our Patreon. We've been running it here now for pretty much close to 2 years. Everyone's been extremely excited. We keep adding new perks every time you guys turn around. We give away Xanthics, we give away high whites, we give away lily whites. We actually upgraded this year to we're giving away over 12 geckos every single year. That averages out to at least a gecko a month, and we've been doing over that. So you are not going to want to miss becoming a part of the Flawless Crested Geckos Patreon family. There's 2 tiers. There's a $50 tier and there's a $100 tier. You get all your funds back in the form of Flawless Crested Gecko savings account. You can take advantage of having 5% additional off by being a Patreon member, as well as having year-round free shipping. You guys are not going to want to miss this, so go head over to patreon.com/Flawless Crested Geckos. Even the new ones, like I said, that we buy if they're a baby or a juvenile, or if we buy an adult, we never have issues transitioning them into the way we keep things. So that we put that out there, hopefully. So even if you don't do as we do with our schedule, it's probably going to be in your best interest to create your own schedule on how you do with your collection, and you make everything kind of adhere to that schedule and it get adjusted to that schedule as you continue to build your collection and bring new geckos into your collection. You wouldn't believe how many questions and comments we get from new keepers that's so excited that, you know, they may have even 10 to 15 geckos and they're pretty much feeding and cleaning 6 out of the 7 days of the week. And it's awesome, because again, that just tells us as a breeder that someone is very excited about keeping, someone is very excited about crested geckos, and they're looking to learn more, enjoy them, and hopefully trying to keep them into the hobby longer by seeking more information that could benefit the longevity of their crested gecko keeping or breeding journey. So again, we've been huge advocates of bringing the community together, trying, you know, some would say, I guess, straddling the fence, but it's not. We're really trying to be the glue that brings everyone together, whether you're, you know, you keep in tubs, whether you keep in fancy enclosures, whether you do bioactive. We've kind of done a little bit of it all. And there is a way for all of it to work. There shouldn't really be anything where people are fighting against each other strictly off of those topics. I think everyone can kind of have their opinion on how to keep things. Everyone should have their opinion on how to keep things. But it all boils down to is you can't control other people to force them to believe what you believe, especially when it comes to keeping a living, breathing reptile. What we found to be kind of the rule of thumb, most crested geckos, especially when they're smaller in their juvenile size, they don't adapt well to extremely large enclosures. We tell those customers still, again, bringing that glue, bringing everyone together. We still tell those customers, if you have that $400 or $500 enclosure that you've built, it's all planted, bioactive, is absolutely stunning and beautiful. We try to give several options for them to have that enclosure work for them. Two of the options that pop into my head right away, if it's an extremely large enclosure, and you don't have that many crested geckos, you're not worried about wasting, gecko diet, put several food stations all throughout your enclosure. That way you don't have to change the way you have things set up. You just, every single time that you go to feed your crested gecko, you're going to put out several different fresh food areas where they can go feed. Or another option would be, especially if it's a juvenile crested gecko, would be get a smaller enclosure, something that's extremely cost effective, because you've already spent a ton of money on your final enclosure in your home, your showpiece, your centerpiece. You get a tub. We walk you through how to build a tub. You can build an enclosure for $10 and have awesome layout, and again, it's temporary. You can use that to continue to grow your gecko out, and then every time you feel like it's at a size, a couple months have passed where you want to transition them over into the new enclosure, you weigh them, put them into the new enclosure. And again, you don't go off for 1 week or a couple days, give them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, weigh them, once every other week or so. And if you see that they're holding weight or adding grams to their weight, then they're doing fairly well, and just leave them where they are. But if you see that after 3 weeks or so, they start to decline and lose weight, then you probably need to transition them back into the smaller temporary enclosure so that they can adjust properly. So we've built all of this up over the years, over trial and error, things that we've had firsthand experience with, and we've literally never had any issues. The last thing we want to bring up in this specific video, because we get questions on it constantly, when we bring brand new geckos again into our facility, what do we do differently? Most crested gecko keepers, they miss, whether it's once a night or once every other day. That mist provides humidity for their crested geckos as well as drinking water. Now, we've literally purchased and brought home and created, quarantine where we'll put them into our system. Now, with our systems, we don't miss. So they're literally, it's like cut and dry. It's no true adjustment per se, but over time they just literally, they're smart enough to know, hey, they're thirsty, you're not spraying water in, we have drinking water where it's sitting there in their enclosure, they just walk up and drink the water. This allows us to care for more geckos, but in a better way for us, because we can constantly provide clean drinking water, and then also we provide the humidity throughout the entire facility, so we can control the sheds and things of that sort easily. So again, we're putting out this video so it doesn't matter what size you're at, whether you're just starting with a few geckos or whether you've been breeding for a while. You can create a standards of operation for yourself. It doesn't have to be extensive or too involved. You just want something that's going to be in the best care of your crested geckos and the most time efficient on yourself as well. Something that that you can get done on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. But hopefully this video helps you guys out. Is Will, Flawless Crested Geckos, and we out.